All right, what's up, you all? I'm here with another lesson in my little intro to modular synthesis series using VCV Rack. So, in the last lesson, we talked about subtractive synthesis and some basics for setting up VCV Rack to use a MIDI controller, things like envelope generators. So, if you're not sure what some of that stuff is, I would check out the first lesson because I am using that here. This lesson, we are going to talk about additive synthesis, which is kind of the opposite of subtractive synthesis, as the name might imply. So in subtractive synthesis, you're taking complex waveforms like a saw wave or something that has a lot of harmonic content, and you're using filters to remove some of that harmonic content and sculpt the sound to your liking. In additive synthesis, you start with a pure tone, a sine wave, something that has no harmonic content, and then you add more harmonic content to it to create the timbre you're looking for. I know this current patch looks a little insane. Like, what on God's green earth is this monstrosity? I promise it's more simple than it looks, and I'll explain what's going on here in a second. So one thing I have that's nice, I have this spectrum analyzer. This is going to show us the audio in the frequency spectrum, so you can kind of see what's going on as I'm adding harmonic content. And of course, I have my little scope analyzer, so you can see the wave shapes. So yeah, right now, just doing some basic sine wave stuff. You can see this A flat is the A flat fundamental right here. Now these oscillators do have a little bit of harmonic content. You can see right here, very quiet. And honestly, you Gen Zers are probably listening to this on your computer or your terrible phone speakers. So a little bit of extra harmonic content will be helpful for you to hear the pitch and stuff. But really a pure tone would just be this guy right here. Cool. So I'm using a couple of mix modules. What those do, you can take multiple audio outputs, mix it down into one single audio output, which will just kind of save me a hassle since I'm using like a billion oscillators here, right? So all of these oscillators are outputting sine waves that I have tuned differently. So what's going on is I'm using a quantizer to inform the successive oscillators what higher frequency to play. I'm basically trying to recreate what a saw wave might sound like using only sine waves at lesser and lesser volume and higher frequencies to represent the overtone series. If you all are not familiar, the overtone series basically talks about how timbre exists mathematically, scientifically in nature with overtones. Any like acoustic instrument or even the human voice, whenever a sound is made, there's the fundamental pitch, the one you hear the most, which is like the root note essentially. And then it produces a multitude of partials or overtones that kind of can follow a certain scientific pattern. Their distribution, their volume, and things like that help determine the timbre and why certain instruments playing the same note, C, for example, will sound different than other notes playing or other instruments playing a C. So I'm using a quantizer module for all of these. Quantizers are super useful, very common and helpful modules that basically take incoming CV information and output a quantized volt per octave CV value. So you can have a quantizer maybe that's set to like a C major scale. So any CV information going into it, if there's a CV value that's close to like an A or something, it's going to snap that CV right to an A, and your output is going to be exactly at an A volt per octave that you can then send to an oscillator or something. They're extremely useful. There's also many different types of quantizers. This one I'm using here is the harmonic quantizer from Venom. This is a very specific type, but it's great for what I'm trying to do here. So this one basically takes an incoming root note, which I'm sending from my keyboard. It's going to take that root, and it's going to output whatever indicated partial above that root note I wanted to put out. So as you can see, I have a succession of sine wave oscillators that are all going to be set to be playing a higher partial than the last. This is how I'm going to sort of replicate all of the notes being built up in the overtone series, which is how we can kind of get a saw wave. So yeah, I'm sort of making a saw wave from scratch using all sine waves. A little crazy, right? Now this is, again, it's a little cumbersome, but I think for sort of demonstrating the basics of additive synthesis, this is going to be kind of useful to see. So let's go down to my little spectrum analyzer. Right now we're just hearing the first oscillator. Nice little sine wave, nice and pretty. And I've got some reverb going, of course, because I'm a freak and I love reverb. And if you don't like reverb, you need to go to the doctor. That's insane. Reverb is the best. So I'm going to bring in the next oscillator that's playing the second partial above whatever root note I'm playing, which is going to be an octave higher. There you go. Already a little more complex, but we can keep going. Let's go up another partial. Ooh, wait a second. That's not a B flat. What's going on here? That's right. The overtone series is actually going to have basically every note of a major scale represented in it, but it's not going to be in tune in the same way, equal temperament wise, that you would hear on a piano. For example, this is a fifth, well, technically an octave plus a fifth above the fundamental, but it's 2 cents flat. This is just, scientifically speaking, how the overtone series is built. Some notes are going to be tuned differently. That's what exists in nature, which is kind of cool. It makes you wonder, why are pianos, for example, tuned in equal temperament? Well, you can do a whole deep dive into microtonal music where they get really nerdy about that stuff. It's really fascinating. So let's keep going. Next one. Another octave. Let's keep going. Ooh, this is a great one. So this is basically a few octaves in the major third above the fundamental. But it's detuned 14 cents flat. But this is a justly intuned major third. It would be 14 cents flat. Cool. Let's keep going. Another fifth. That's detuned by 2 cents. This next one is really nice. Oh, you hear that? Ooh. So this is, again, every note is higher than the last, but this is essentially a minor seventh above what your root note is, but it's, I think, 31 cents flat. 31 cents is a lot. So this is a really out of tune minor seventh as far as equal temperament is concerned. But now, look at our little spectrum analyzer. You can already tell it's starting to look more like a sine wave. Cool, right? We already got like a much more interesting, colorful sound. But we can keep, again, I have a bunch up here. You can go even higher in the overtone series, but I didn't want to blow up my computer and send the CPU to outer space, so not going to do that. I've got several more partials represented in my next little mix console. I'm just going to go ahead and unmute this and fire it all off. Look at this guy. Bass tones sound really nice here. I'm a terrible keyboard player, so you guys have to forgive me for that. But look at that. We've basically created almost a saw wave. And look at our wave shape. Like, what on earth is happening here? Yeah, so we've almost sort of created a saw wave here just using a bunch of sine waves that are tuned a little higher than the last one. Following, again, the overtone series pattern. But the distribution and volume of all of these can kind of help determine the timbre. I'm just gonna like send some of these at like random output volumes. Just I don't know, like why not? Let's experiment and see what kind of absolutely weird, disgusting sound we'll get out of this. Maybe send this one like really high. What's this gonna sound like? It sounds almost like square wave-ish. You can also sort of recreate the sound of a square wave doing this too. You would just have to delete every other sine wave, essentially. Ooh. This is really fun for making bass sounds, especially. I use this kind of technique a lot when I'm trying to make really interesting bass tones. But yeah, so that's basically additive synthesis, kind of at its core. But I also want to real quick show you guys couple of ways you can add harmonic content without having to set up 1,000 sine wave VCOs. So yeah, let's go down here. I have a couple of little guys set up. I'm gonna mute this, get rid of this guy. Ooh, come down here. Gonna patch some of this stuff together. My little envelope generator, boom. So I'm setting up like a basic little synthy guy here. Yeah. Great. So I got a basic sine wave. want to make sure you can see the spectrum analyzer so we can see what's happening as I try out some of these different modules. All of these modules are free from different developers, but all of these modules kind of approach shaping our waveform in a different way. So first and foremost, I'm going to take... Oh, actually, let me unpatch this, because what I want to do is send my sine wave into this wave shaper from Instruo. I'm going to take the output and put it into this so we can see what it looks like. I can put it into this as well. And of course, make sure my output is going to my mixing console so you guys can hear it. Sorry, oh man, my frame rate is getting annihilated right now. All right, cool. So I'm going to bring this all the way down. Let me turn the volume up a little bit. So right now you're just hearing basic sine wave, haven't shaped the waveform at all. You can see our little sine wave looking nice. I'm going to turn the gain up here, and you're going to see it's going to get saturated. Look at that. Now it's basically a square wave, right? If you look at the wave shape, obviously a square wave. Look at all that extra harmonic content. Cool. Yeah. So this guy's really nice. Can basically super over push and saturate wave shapes and give them extra harmonic content. Kind of make it look like a square wave in this case. All right, let's try the next guy. We're gonna go into, this is a wave folder. I really like the way this guy works. So gonna bring the volume up a little bit. There's our pure tone. You can see that. It's really quiet. As I bring the gain up, see the amplitude of the sine wave going up? Now it's gonna fold the wave in on itself. Once it reaches the peak, these peaks, the bottom and top, are gonna start folding back into themselves. Check this out. Oh, you see that? Creates an interesting spread of harmonic content. This one's also nice for lower bass tones. Can do it even more, and then it'll start folding the folds in on themselves. I mean, pretty cool. I like this one a lot. I love wave folders. Very fun. All right, another very common method for kind of adding harmonic content is distortion. Yeah, classic, tried and true. Can't go wrong with distortion. Let's try some of these guys out. I'm gonna bring the gain all the way down, back to our good old sine wave, saturating it, distorting it, getting a little closer to kind of the square wave shape. This is a pretty simple symmetrical distortion type. Let's try a more harsh one. Ooh, yeah, that's a square wave. Oh, look at that. Even more disgusting. Let's try an asymmetrical one. Again, we're just sending a sine wave into this, and it's distorting it so much that it's giving it a bunch of extra harmonic content that you can see on the spectrum analyzer. Cool, let's try another guy. This one, where is my, there we go. This is from Volt. This is a wave shaper, so this has a couple of different, whoa, dang. Let me get some of this turned down a little bit, reinitialize this bad boy. Back to our good old sine wave. And let's start messing with some of these parameters. All right, so we're gonna change the width. You can see it's pushing the width length of the full phase of the sine wave. Creates a lot of harmonic content. Ugh. Really buzzy, but they're all kind of at a similar volume. Ooh, this one's really cool for bass tones. Let's move the pulse amp up. That just brings that down. I love what it's doing to the waveform too. It's kind of fun to watch the wave shape to see how it responds to this. Let's get the fold a little more extreme. Cool. All right, let's try this last one. So this is a wave destruction module, also from Volt. I like this one a lot. This one has a lot of cool, fun things you can do with it. So let me initialize this just in case I left it doing some crazy nonsense. Back to sine wave, back to our classic sine wave. And let's fold it in on itself, just like this Instruo wave folder we used earlier. Won't fold it too much. This is a crush. It's like a bit crusher, so you can get that old video gamey sound. this just sort of takes away the smoothness of the waveform, as you kind of see in the scope right here. Almost makes it look like a little 8-bit video game. You can see Mario running up this and sliding down on a skateboard or a turtle shell or something. Ooh, cool. I'm a fan of the Mario series. He should have a skateboarding game. I'm surprised do they have a Mario skateboarding game? I don't know. Some distortion. Let's put a little saturation in there. Why not? Cool. Yeah. Nothing too crazy. There's like, a million ways you can add harmonic content, and definitely encourage you to experiment and come up with creative ways to introduce and reduce harmonic content, and maybe even alter it slightly. Another way sounds can develop is any of the partials that are made or heard can kind of change in amplitude, maybe fluctuate in tuning to kind of give the timbre a little more flow, a little more shape. So there's a lot of different ways that you can sculpt your sound using additive synthesis. And this is really only the very sort of basic way to do it. You can get a lot crazier. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and hope you check out the next lesson. Thanks.